Great.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Jameson Goslin. I am Vice President of Senior Living here at G5, and I want to welcome you to this very timely webinar, Marketing in Uncertain Times, 20 plus tips to use in senior living. I'm also joined by Craig Branstad, G5 Solution Architect for Senior Living, and Kelly Kutach, G5's Manager for Marketing Communications, who has also worked closely with our product development teams on a variety of solutions that we offer to the senior living business today. The three of us and about 250 other G5 employees are now working remotely due to the global coronavirus situation. We are fortunate to have our internal support teams in place when we got the word to close our offices late last week, but we're still all here in support of our clients and the senior living business. I've gotten to know so many folks during my 17 plus year career in the senior living business. But one thing you may not know about me is I've spent a fair bit of time working in crisis communications and issues management, both in and outside senior living. It all started at a little old phone company called WorldCom. Both there and in senior living, the teams I worked with navigated recessions, the 9/11 incident, and hundreds of issues with natural disasters and heartbreaking incidents, and some other really, really bizarre situations. This global emergency with COVID-19 is completely different. We saw it off in the distance, slowly moving in. Then all of a sudden, it was right in front of us. The world as we know it basically changed within a few days. And now we have no idea how long this will last. Will it be weeks? Will it be months? Definitely a time of uncertainty. However, times of uncertainty are not easy for any of us, but we will all get through it together. All of us at G5 know your top priority in the senior living business right now is the wellness of your residents and staff. Knowing this makes us feel assured too here at G5. Many of us have seniors in our lives, and some of whom live in your senior living communities. Many of you have already gotten your emergency communications in place. So what more can you do to provide value to your audiences and stakeholders? What can you do to get your unique stories out? That's the purpose of today's conversation, and to get you some news that you can use, some information that you can apply to your business, and to help manage the uncertainty for yourself and the stakeholders that you need to communicate with. Digital marketing strategies and the marketing technology powering them can work to your advantage, especially during uncertain times like these. So Craig, I know you've been in the trenches right now helping our prospects and clients navigate the COVID-19 communication situation out there. What are you hearing from folks, and what are some of the best practices that you're finding?
Absolutely. Thank you, Jameson. So first off is we know that our websites are a major tool for our portfolios, not only for marketing aspects, which is what we are normally interested in, lead generation, but it's your number one mechanism for communication as well. I myself, I can just kind of relate to this real fast to tee up some of these tips here is, before I even asked my mom about how to get in touch with my grandmother who's living in a community down in California, I went to that community's website to try to get as much information about how I can call, if I can call, when I should call, and what that process is. Their entire website had morphed from a lead generation to a full-blown communication sounding board. And that's really what we want to do. Our residents and their families are going to naturally move to the website to find out the most recent information and most up-to-date information they can about how to get in touch with loved ones. So that means that we need to think about our website more as a communication tool to put out the most relevant information. And here at G5, we have a number of different ways that we can help facilitate the immediate communications, right? This needs to go out now. Yesterday was too late, and tomorrow is also too late, so it needs to be fresh. So we have a number of ways that we can tackle this, including what are typically known as sticky banners. And I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with this, but these are banners that exist on top of the website that display to a user when they arrive to the website. It's great for very quick and concise communication to grab someone's attention. So the best recommendation that we're saying to our clients is have a sticky banner that is set up to showcase to users when they arrive to the site. We also want to ensure that we remove some of like the date parameters so that if they continue to visit the site, that they still receive that message. And it's something very concise that asks you to click onto a page that is directly related to the COVID-19 and what the community and the corporation is doing. This can also be facilitated through just a stagnant extra content stripe that is placed onto the homepage to, again, to drive the user to the relevant information. Website design is always around giving the user the information they're looking for quickly and efficiently, and that is very true right now. We don't want our users and our family members clicking around trying to figure out where they need to go. We want to display the information to them in a nice way and give them the path to go down to interact with the community from there. And this should be on the corporate site and on the community site as well. If it's a larger portfolio, your corporate headquarters may be located across the country, but your community is dealing with it locally. So we want to have those messages out there and ready to go for users to interact with. This is also a great time to leverage your blog. If you're blogging out there and people are engaging with that, type up a blog, get that information out there as to what you're doing, how your residents are responding. It doesn't have to be morbid either. This could be a chance to showcase the programs you have in place to keep resident life as normal as it can be in times like this. Showcase them having fun, interacting if they are able to, those types of things. So it can be informative, but also reassure family members that mom isn't just sitting alone by herself in her apartment. We can use this blog in a number of different ways to be informative and engaging. Again, we live in a time where everyone's connected, right? So this is a fantastic use of technology to showcase how people are actually living. We're sitting miles apart hosting a web event that is all around this, and we can see the connectivity that just our little team has, and that can be conveyed out to the family members as well. So use those tools to your advantage. Again, this should be pushed out for people to engage with and to keep it informative. I do recommend, and we do recommend that you are consulting your, whoever is running your resident health programs, whether that's from a C-level or down at the community level as well, making sure that you do have that right information. We don't want to put out false information or mislead anybody. We want to be very concise and intentional with the messaging that we're placing out there. So do make sure you're consulting your internal teams to put the right thing out there. The other big suggestion that we can do and that we have control of, and actually I've done this in the past with portfolios that around the eastern seaboard that deal a lot with hurricanes and major storms, is we built what we call a dark page. And what this is it is a page that exists on your website that is turned off. So it doesn't exist on your live website. It exists in the back end that can be toggled on in times of emergency. And what this allows you to do is to pre-populate a wireframe with general information about the community, making, if there's an emergency number on there or imagery or whatever it is, it takes that legwork of page design out of it. So all you have to do is update the content to what you're talking about, and you can toggle that on and publish it to your live site. Some of these steps are really going to allow you to communicate and to connect with the family members that you need to talk to. And again, this goes beyond family members. I failed to mention that earlier. This is also for stakeholders. Anyone that has a stakeholder in the community, be it an employee, a resident, a family member, whoever, the website is really key to your communication. And putting some of these best practices into place can really help you mitigate panic and ensure that we make this through smoothly. So this leads us to, what are you actually going to put on the website? Like, what words, what phrasing? And we're starting to see some really interesting content come through to us from clients that were asked to post onto the website. Jameson, you were telling me yesterday about some of the great content that clients are providing. Can you go into what that content is and maybe how they're laying that out and communicating it out to the masses?
Yeah, thanks, Craig. You know, folks, now that Craig kind of walked through your distribution hub of information, content is really the most critical piece to be populating and to be able to communicate with people. What do you want to communicate to people? And there are two things to think about with information that you're going to be sharing, whether it's on your website or through some of the other channels that we're going to talk about in a bit. First, the actual content you share is factual, up-to-date, and relevant. That's your substance. What are you actually going to be communicating in terms of substance? And then the second way to think about it is, on top of the substance, what is the style and manner in which you are going to communicate that information? And in today's day and age with uncertainty, people are looking for positive, reassuring messages. It might be factual, but it still can be positive and reassuring. And there are ways that you can do that. First of all, how is your community or property responding to the situation? For copy-based content, I typically like to use a date timestamp update sort of log of information. The COVID-19 situation continues to evolve very quickly, so providing a date timestamp on your updates is going to allow people to review the newest information up front, but still be able to access older updates as needed. Second, what updates have you made to policies at your community and property as a result of the COVID-19 situation? As you have made changes and addressed those changes, you're going to want to be able to pull out some of those changes and communicate it in layman's terms to people so they understand what you are doing that is going to be different. Third, what questions are you hearing from your residents, families, and the wider community in general? You know, and can you put together as part of this communications effort an FAQ? Next, contact information. Who do you want interested parties to contact if they have questions? Do you want to have calls from residents and families directed to one phone line and media inquiries to another? Make that very clear in your content on your web page. As the situation changes, especially in some communities, your ED and community staff might be completely inundated with caring for the residents and themselves. And so in that case, do you want to redirect calls to a corporate office rather than have them go to the community? And the corporate office in your war room or situation room can be taking notes, getting updates from the community and processing it through there to get back to families and others quickly at the local level. All of this is easy to change online when it comes to contact information. Next, you may want to include downloadable PDFs with more information, perhaps something describing your community's sanitization procedures, new dining policies, visitor restrictions, etc. We have a picture up here of Harmony Senior Living and the nice job that they did putting together some information that directly communicates with each stakeholder that they need to communicate about in terms of policy changes and things like that. So great job to Harmony in pulling that piece of information together. Remember, while it's important to communicate with your stakeholders quickly, you want to make sure you are doing the right thing. So be thoughtful and strategic in your approach. This doesn't always mean being the fastest. So now that we've covered how to best share critical information, it's also important to share content that's positive and reassuring. I really like some of the videos several operators have created. I'd like to give a shout out to Tana Gall at Merrill Gardens. Her video communicates a great balance of compassion, professionalism, and commitment. It really makes people feel their loved ones are in good hands. And don't forget, video can also be live, like on Facebook or FaceTime. You can have your folks engage with prospects over FaceTime or Skype. Check in on a senior isolated at home that might be in your CRM. If they're isolated at home, they would probably appreciate a check-in. And if they have access to a computer or an iPhone or an iPad or many other technologies, you can communicate face-to-face with the person and just say, hey, how are you doing? And even offer a virtual walk around the community. You're going to have prospects still inquiring about living in your communities, and you want to be able to nurture them. So being able to communicate with those people virtually and giving them a virtual tour on FaceTime or another technology is a great way to keep them engaged and continue to keep the lead warm or hot in your CRM. Lastly, and reinforcing the first point about video, life continues at your communities. This is senior living, folks. We create stories every day in our communities. Can your residents and staff help you with the development of these stories? Think differently about resident activities, the dining time, and the programs. Then tell the story about them. Video platforms like One Day and Heart Legacy can help you accomplish this. So really focus in on getting the great stories that you are continuing to create every day in your communities out there. You know, Craig, earlier this week, we heard from our senior living SEO team about some guidance Google recently gave about updating Google My Business pages. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So we can never get away from Google. It's always going to be there, and in this case, it becomes even more vitally important. Going back to everything that Jameson and I have been talking about for the last few minutes of communicating truthful, accurate information, and making sure that that information is out there for stakeholders to consume. So Google is the best spot to do that, particularly when it comes to your Google My Business profile. Now, for most of you as G5 clients, this is managed with the G5 team. Our SEO team is helping to manage this. And I will say this before we dive into the actual things we should be doing, that the G5 team is here to help. We're your partners through thick and thin. And so please reach out to your account manager, reach out to our support team if you need help making any of the changes that we're about to go through, or just to make sure that things are functioning as normal. But there are some true things that we can do to help Google, use Google as our communication method. And going back to the Google My Business profile, is this allows you to update hours and business descriptions, and you can actually post onto Google as if it were like a blog post or something like that. Updating our business hours, that's really important. Going back to, we know that we're having limited visitation, if visitation at all. That can be put forth on your Google My Business profile to let residents know that these are the visiting hours, or we're not accepting visitors at our time for quarantine reasons. Please, visit at a different time. That can be pushed out when somebody's looking for you. The business description as well can also be leveraged for this type of information. Typically, the business description is used to describe the type of community and the type of care level that you have. So, be it a memory care or a independent living, assisted living, that type of thing. But this business description can be changed to deliver a type of message of how to engage with the community during times of crisis like this. And then we go back to the creating these posts. You can actually put posts out there with those timestamps that Jameson just referenced, so that people can see what you're doing almost at a real-time level of what's happening at the community from a policy standpoint, from a life continues on standpoint. Those three things are really a very sound way to inform people that are looking to get information about your community.
Yeah, and Craig, just another point about that visual there with the Elmcroft of Sellwood. They actually are offering, you'll see at the bottom of the visual, they're offering virtual tours to people now. And so that's a way to communicate through Google My Business, which I thought was pretty cool, and an updated aspect of offering that to people who might not want to go in for an in-person tour right now.
Yep, 100%. Yeah, that's a good point. Thank you, Jameson. But this all plays into another topic that we lightly touched on, is that our senior living is all about creating stories, right? It's testimonials, it's how people feel, it's the interaction with us, and we don't want to forget about that engagement. So managing your reputation and your social presence online becomes that much more important during these times. Not just from an SEO standpoint. We're kind of shifting the focus. During normal times, this is a pillar of SEO, right? Is to respond to reviews and manage that. But I look at this now as more of an engagement tool. We want to see if people are reaching out to us via a review platform, be it Google or Yelp or whatever it may be, and interact with those folks. We want to be truthful and empathetic. We want to be honest and deliver the right message, even inviting that conversation offline if needs be. But again, monitoring your your reputation online is going to be key during these times. So you should have a tool where hopefully you're pulling in all of your reviews from different sources, so you can manage it out of one dashboard or one hub, and then take time to engage with those reviews or those comments that are coming through. But this, again, can also be a positive thing. This doesn't have to be so negative. Is we can use our social platforms, our Facebook, if you're on Instagram or something like that, of showcasing that life goes on in our communities. Our residents, although, you know, it's some scary times and things like that, we're still doing things. Life goes on. We're still having fun. And again, Jameson made a great point, is video is crucial. You can take a 20-second video of a resident doing something, or the staff members doing something extra, and push that out to your Facebook page, to your Google My Business profile, to show what life is like. Use the tools around you and the technologies that we have available to us to help communicate your message and what life looks like at your community. But that is to say, we don't want to let this go by the wayside, right? We want to ensure that we're staying up on our reviews and staying up on our social posting. So from there, we've been hearing a lot from our clients about what to do with their digital advertising programs. Do we need to ratchet spend up? Do we need to pull spend back? You know, what are we going to do with these campaigns? And Kelly, you have worked hard to develop our digital advertising solutions. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, thanks, Craig. You know, first, digital advertising, it is the easiest and most dynamically gen channel to manage. And right now, people have a lot of questions. So when we talk digital advertising, we're talking about paid ads. In other words, when you do a Google search, what you see at the top of the search engine results page, or as you're browsing on the internet or on social media and you see ads for a specific community popping up in your website browsing. So for digital advertising to perform the best and the most efficient, you really have to do ongoing campaign management and be persistent. So at this time, you know, I think the first gut reaction for a lot of people is to cut digital advertising because they see that as an expense that seems easy to cut. So I want to hit pause and talk about why we don't recommend that to our customers or to any advertisers online anyway. So when you think about it, it took you a long time to build your traffic and conversion funnel from your ads. So shutting things off very quickly, it's just like wiping your slate completely clean, so that when you do decide to turn your ads back on, it's really going to take a long time for your ad to get back to where it was in the ad auction. And then it's also going to take time for networks to relearn and retrain on what was performing best. For example, if you once were spending $1,000 per month on your search ads, and then you cut your budget all the way down to zero, you've now lost what the network learned about what was performing for your ad based on your keywords and on that campaign. So what we recommend is, if you do need to rethink your budget, think about doing that over time. So you're not going to shock the system one way or the other. So think about taking your budget down slowly, or even reallocating that budget across channels that might be performing better for you during this time. So a couple things I want to talk through is what it means to maintain your presence online and how to do that for digital advertising. So think about it. Right now, ILSs they're not turning off. So what will happen is, if you turn off your digital advertising right now, when you turn on ads again, it's going to take you a long time to ramp back up to the same performance levels. Meanwhile, those ILSs have been on the entire time. And so what happens is, people are going to see the ILS before your ad, and you're going to be paying for that higher dollar click versus paying for the lower cost click on a digital ad. So that's one of the reasons why we say, don't just cut ads off completely, but think about how you can use the budget in a smarter way. The other thing that you should consider is that, especially right now, people are spending a lot more time online. They're at home, they're trying to get as much information as they can online, and they're searching, they're using social media channels to get that information. So one thing we like to recommend is that communities actually diversify their advertising mix just a little bit. So take what you're spending on your search channels and think about putting that budget towards your display campaigns, or putting that towards a social media ad campaign. So that way you're reaching people when they're browsing on various websites, and then you're also reaching them on social media. So a couple things and tactics to think through as you diversify your advertising mix, or as you make some adjustments to your campaigns. So the very first thing that we're doing here to respond to any sort of crisis or or situation, be it a hurricane or tornado in an area, we really want to add negative keywords to our list so that we're not getting clicks on searches related to crisis at this time. So for example, you don't want somebody clicking on an ad for your property if they searched senior housing, Daytona Beach, coronavirus. That's a waste of your ad spend if that's what they're searching for, is things related to the virus in a specific area, and also generally looking for senior housing. So we want to add negative keywords like coronavirus, flu, influenza, pandemic, things like that get added to our negative keyword list. The other thing we think about is updating our exclusion list. So display ad networks allow your advertisements to be displayed on certain websites. So we're recommending that from a just pure brand control perspective, making sure that your ad isn't showing on websites that are blasting out news about coronavirus. So we're updating our exclusion list to make sure that we prevent ads from showing on those websites. The other thing we recommend is to think about remarketing campaigns. So if you are currently running remarketing campaigns, you want to really lower the frequency that people are clicking on those remarketing ads. And maybe it's a good time to take a pause on ads that are running on your remarketing channels, because what you want to avoid is people clicking on your ads who may have already visited your website or are already in your CRM. So you might not be taking tours right now, so you don't want the call to action for those lower funnel leads to contact you or take a tour of your property. So for that reason, we recommend removing your remarketing campaigns for the time being. So we know that all resources are finite, and reducing your spend is better than eliminating your campaigns altogether. But thinking about how you're redeploying your dollars from a traditional ad campaign into your digital programs can really help you diversify how you're reaching your audiences. So Jameson, I know you've counseled some on-site salespeople at communities through this crisis and others. So what are some things that you're recommending to them, or that you're asking them to think about more thoroughly?
Yeah, Kelly, great question. And, like I said earlier, this is a very different sort of situation. I've been through many isolated situations dealing with things like norovirus, the flu, scabies, bed bugs, and other things. This situation is not like those because most senior living communities don't have any issues inside their buildings right now. They are trying to keep coronavirus out of the buildings. And so as a result, some states, but not all, have tightly restricted or asked communities to restrict visitation by anyone, even tours from seniors moving in. And so even though tours and move-ins may be restricted now where you are, your sales team can still answer questions. They can learn more about people's situations and connect with them. They can develop a wait list and nurture leads for advances in the future until the ban on tours or move-ins is lifted. Share those positive stories we were talking about earlier as part of your lead nurturing efforts. People still want to see that there are good things going on in the senior living communities. And these are great tools for you to use, not only with your inside the community stakeholders, but also those that might be interested in living in your community. Show the professionalism of which you are caring for the seniors living in your communities. I mean, that's the sort of stuff that shows the professionalism of what's going on in the communities and how we are keeping coronavirus out of our communities. As it relates to digital advertising especially, I heard on the news yesterday that unemployment could get as high as 20% with all the businesses that are being shut down right now. That is not true for senior living. And I've heard from a few clients who are now paying double overtime for overtime. But the bigger concern for them is really simply staff burnout. Some communities have been running lean due to the low unemployment situation. In a time of what is expected to be high unemployment, now's the time to get out there and promote careers at your senior living communities. A couple of our clients are leveraging digital advertising to promote career opportunities. Yes, it's a completely different campaign, but it is an awesome collaborative opportunity for sales and marketing and HR. And it can help get good jobs to good people. And, you know, at a time that a lot of people are losing their jobs, this is an opportunity for you to put jobs in front of them and really highlight and underscore that this isn't just going to be a job. This could be a long-term career for you in long-term care of seniors. So that's a really awesome opportunity. You know, our G5 brand team is working to help folks think through things like employee value proposition and career brand communications. So using digital advertising for recruiting right now is the right strategy at the right time. So in closing, I want to thank Kelly and Craig for participating in this conversation and highlighting some of I'm sure the many other best practices out there that you're going to hear about in the weeks ahead. Definitely keep a close eye on your KPIs and metrics. I think there's going to be some interesting things that we see in terms of the numbers, whether it's inquiries, visitor traffic to websites, all the way down through the funnel into things such as your lead numbers, your tour numbers, and your move-in numbers. Again, a lot of what we're trying to accomplish, especially if you have restrictions on visitation to the community right now, is to build up a solid, warm pipeline that you can tap back into as the market begins to open up again and people visit and restrictions are taken off on visitation. So I would definitely focus on that opportunity. We know the numbers will help you in your decision making and guide you where best to spend finite money and extremely finite time right now. And speaking of your time, take care of yourself too. Get outside, get some fresh air, take a walk, download some of the great apps out there now like Headspace or Map My Run or the many other mind, body, and spirit self-help tools and apps out there. And most important, stay connected with friends, family, and colleagues. Hey, we are all one big family in senior living, so let's help one another out. So thank you for taking a few minutes of time with us today. Feel free to connect with me and or the G5 team on LinkedIn if you have questions, thoughts, or perspective. We'd love to hear from you. And you can also access a checklist on our website summarizing a lot of the points we made on this webinar today. You can check it out at www.getg5.com. And stay healthy, everyone. And we look forward to talking with you again soon. Thank you.